So we are here today with Rosie, Nomadic Babe. All right, let's get started. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Where does your story begin, and when did you realize the normal life wasn't for you?
I think it was a process of over the course of a couple of years. I had some pretty serious medical issues, and I got treated and fine. But it really had me evaluating what's really important in life, and the conclusion I came to is living, just living, baby. LIVINBABY.
What brought you to this lifestyle?
So after evaluating what's really important, I realized that I had the big office, I had the big house, and I was hardly ever at the house. But when I was always taking care of things. And I was just tired of that, and it didn't seem sustainable anymore, to be completely honest. And so from there, I just downsized to a little apartment, and the more things I got rid of, it was certainly a process, but the more things I got rid of, the more free I felt, actually. And I was surprised by that. And so finally got an RV after that, after downsizing and realizing that I could do something different.
Wonderful. Nice. What have you learned once you were finally doing the nomad life?
That things don't matter, people matter, life matters, the memories that we make, and how to be very flexible and to adjust constantly to stressors that you weren't expecting.
Wonderful. Could you ever go back to a normal way of life?
No, definitely not. After realizing that in this lifestyle, you can have a lot more control over where you live and how you live, that to me is just so attractive.
Wonderful. What struggles have you faced in the nomad life?
Definitely, probably the big ones are finding the same supplies that I would usually get in different parts of the country. Some things just aren't available, and medical care is sometimes difficult, and that includes for the animals. And then probably the second one is maintenance, and surprise maintenance when you get a blowout or something breaks off at the trailer and you have to duct tape it. Mm-hmm. One time I had to duct tape the awning in Oklahoma to the side because the wind just took it and ripped all of the metal off of it. And I've gotten it fixed since then, but I needed to fix it in a way that lasted for about a month on the road because I couldn't find anybody.
Gotcha.
To do that maintenance. Yeah.
Wonderful. What have you learned after meeting some good and not so good nomads?
That life here it's still life. It's not that different than the static life, I guess. And everyone out here is really unique. I'll say that. Everyone out here is really interesting and has their own stories. And also some people are out here not by choice or, came into some really tough situations that have forced them into this. And those folks are going to maybe have a different perspective and probably a different attitude about it.
Wonderful. What was your childhood like that kept pushing you towards this lifestyle?
Well, I think that both of my parents are travelers. I love to travel. And my father was Air Force, and then he was a pilot of several different types of aircraft. And so he had that adventurous spirit, and I definitely have like a little bit of that in me. And also, I've always been a little bit of an outlier. So I have always been the one that kind of asks why. And why do we do things this way? And definitely one of the questions I ask is, why do we have to work so hard in like a cubicle or something like that. Now I'm a digital nomad and I'm a content creator, and I work just as much as I did then, but in a different way. I get to work in these beautiful places, and I can leave the stressful meeting and go take a hike and look at the mountains, and it's just a little more flexible, a little more independent of a way of doing things.
What's a typical day like for you on the road?
So a travel day is definitely a different day. I like to get started early, kind of beat the traffic, but not too early. A lot of the trucks run between 3 and 5 a.m., so I learned that pretty early on. So unless you want to be getting tossed around on the highway with the trucks and having low visibility, getting started maybe like 8 or 9. And I've learned that my max now, after traveling quite a bit, is about an hour, maybe 2 of driving with lots of breaks. And get to the campsite, always have a backup. So that's another reason for getting started early. I used to, my gosh, one campsite, I had a reservation at one RV park, and then I showed up and it was closed. And so that's where that flexibility comes in. And I was able to call the ranger station at a state park, and they got me in by 9:30 at night, but I couldn't see. It was hard to set up camp and all that. And so that's why I like to get started early, and definitely leave a lot of time to set up camp, because that's the part that takes a lot of time for me. I like to have a lot of things outside of the trailer, especially with living in such a small one. Mm-hmm. You gotta use it for storage, and so you're taking lots of stuff out when you get to camp.
All right. How do you handle living in such a small space?
There's that word again, flexibility. Having flexible living spaces. So my kitchen turns into my office when I'm working, and then at night, if I want to cook something, all the office stuff goes away. I'll show you here in a bit. I have a platform that I put my computer on, and then that all goes away. And the shower doubles as dirty laundry storage. If I've just done laundry, sometimes I'll fold everything, put it in the shower, and then slowly put it in the wardrobe from there. So that's how. And I also have an outdoor tent, so when I feel like it, I take that out, and that gives me some outdoor living space as well. And beyond that, just lots of hiking, getting out in the outdoors, not spending time in the trailer.
What's the best part of the nomad life for you?
Getting to pick your view, getting to pick where you park and where you're going to call, what you're going to call, where you're going to call home. And that flexibility of that, if you don't like where you're at, getting to move. If you want to explore a different area, you can absolutely do that.
How do you balance work and travel, and do you work remotely?
So I work like 2-3 days, and I'll work like 10-hour days, maybe more. And I kind of get that out of the way, and then that leaves me sometimes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So 4-day weekend or 3-day weekend, depending on the work that I'm blessed with. And that really helps. So being really intense and intentional about the work, and also about the work-life balance, and having lots of leisure time. That's also intense and something that you throw yourself completely into.
Nice. And what do you do for work?
I'm an online therapist.
Oh, fascinating.
I counsel people.
Nice. And do you do any other type of content?
I do. I'm an online content creator on TikTok. Rosie_takes is my handle there. And I'm Nomadic Babe on YouTube. Just still kind of in development there. And it's going to be more of a retrospective, I'm thinking. So telling stories that have already happened on the road.
Oh, fascinating. What type of rig do you live in, and how did you choose it?
So this is a 2020 Trailblazer. It's by Sundowner, and I chose it because I wanted something small, but I wanted something that was well built and simply built, so that if things broke, it was going to be an easier fix, and that's absolutely been the case. So even though it's only 13 feet long, it really checked off all my boxes, at least initially. And I chose that because my first Class C was kind of a lemon, and I guess that put a bad taste in my mouth for that. It was also kind of daunting to take it to repair and be like, here's my car and my house. That just didn't sit really well with me. And so once I saw some friends that had trailers and how they were able to drop the trailer, leave it somewhere, and go to the store, save on gas, and kind of maybe have their things more secure, actually, that's why I picked towing.
What essentials do you keep in your rig that you can't live without?
Water. Lots of extra water and dried goods for if you can't get to a store, like especially when we drive a lot of miles, you're more likely to have mechanical failures. And so there's definitely been a couple of days where I was broke down and was really glad to have that food and water. Beyond that, soap and sunscreen, you know.
Like, do you have any like books or other type of stuff, coffee maker, like
Oh, yes.
from the normal world that you just can't go without?
Oh, yes, definitely coffee. I have two types, the kind that you plug into the wall, the standard type, and then the kind where you can drip if you don't have electricity or your solar's not pulling too well. Yeah, definitely those. And yeah, I have a little library of books and videos.
Wonderful. What's one thing you wish you had in your rig but don't?
A convection oven. I really want to get one of those. I'm going to replace the microwave at some point.
Yeah, and why do you want one?
You could bake cookies, you could toast the pizza. That's really hard to do on propane or, yeah, it's just not something that happens.
So just more normal world cooking capabilities.
Yes.
Gotcha. Good.
Absolutely.
What do you do for power, water, and internet?
So for water, I do have to go fill up water, haul water by hand. I have these big jugs that I use when I run out of water in my tank, and that's always really helpful. It also sometimes lets me stay out of the road a little bit longer. Electricity, I have slowly added generators, so I'll show you that later. I have a 2-generator setup. That's probably something that's unique about me. I'm power hungry because of my job. I wish I could be more minimalistic, but I can't. Internet. That has been a long process of using different types of hotspots. I always have a couple different providers because as you move to different parts of the country, like for example in northern Arizona, Verizon is almost non-existent once you get up into the mountains. So I trade off of one hotspot to another.
How do you find places to park overnight?
My go-to is Campendium and freecampsites.net. I also, little known secret, irv2.com is a great one. If you're in an area where there's nothing on Campendium maps or other maps, then it's word of mouth, and people will say like, hey, take this road, turn 2 lefts and a right, and then there you are.
What do you do for showers and a bathroom?
So I do have a good water heater that's a lot better than my other rig was. So I take, it's always a short shower in any RV. So I take a short shower in my RV usually. Sometimes I will go to a gym or an RV campground that has showers and really just take a long shower. That's nice to do from time to time. And then also, like I said, I keep extra water on board. So in the summer, it doesn't really need to be hot. So I use that water also out of the water that I've hauled.
Yeah, and what about your bathroom?
Oh, and I have a regular bathroom with a black tank.
Nice. How do you manage food and preparing that food on the road?
I've learned that this is not the place to be making lasagna from scratch. It's a place when you're on the road to do simple meals. So I tend towards simple meals, just things you can throw together, like toast and something on the toast, lots of salads, things like that. And I handle it by usually having between 1 and 2 meals a day. So I keep it simple. I'm not definitely not eating the way I did in sticks and bricks.
Nice. Do you have any advice for staying organized in a small space?
Yes, investing in the organizers and finding better ones as you move along. When you find something's not working, tearing it out and starting over is something I would try not to do in the past, but now I do that and it helps a ton. That and knowing that you're going to have cleaning days and then you're going to have organize the organizer's day where you got to also maybe reorganize what you've thrown in. And so that way you know where everything is and it looks neat too.
What do you do if you need to do laundry or buy supplies?
That can be an adventure, the buying of supplies things. Those times when there maybe isn't a Walmart, but there's like a little general store. And so you have to kind of go out and see who has what and if it's a decent price. And aside from that, laundry, sometimes I've done laundry off grid. Like when I was up at Lake Havasu last summer, at the beginning of the summer, I tried some different ways to get a bucket, and I have a little hand wringer, and that was hard work, but it got the clothes clean. I prefer laundromats definitely, and so finding I'm driving through town, making note of like, okay, there's a laundromat over there. I'm going to be using that. Or RV parks in some circumstances where there's no laundromats.
Nice. What's the most challenging part of being a nomad full time?
Ooh, I like to tell people who aren't familiar with the lifestyle that you're going to have some of your best days out on the road and some of your worst days. Like when you have a catastrophic mechanical failure, that's a day. I had a blowout leaving Roswell, New Mexico, and it was on the side of a mountain highway, and in the middle of the summer. And that was a scary moment. That was a lot of scary moments and a lot of I was already tired from traveling all day. And so to get into hour 12, 13, 14, while you're finding someone to fix your tire, help you fix your tire, and then you still have to find the campground. You still have to find home for that night. That's by far the most challenging part. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Have you ever felt unsafe while traveling?
Yeah, a few times. I think most people think it's a lot worse than it is, but there's not a boogeyman around every corner. But there are sometimes, yes, where I think, come upon some camps, usually on BLM, where maybe something illicit is going on and they don't really want other people around. And so, yeah, absolutely. And you just have to kind of go with your gut in those moments. And if you don't feel welcome, if you don't feel comfortable, then probably it's time to go. And that's how I've handled that. Parking lots sometimes haven't felt the safest, particularly Walmart parking lots. I don't really do that unless it's in a small town. Around bigger cities, I've never gotten a peaceful night's sleep in a Walmart parking lot. So I just don't do that one.
Nice. How do you stay healthy?
Physical fitness and trying to eat more fresh foods as much as I can. Sometimes that's hard to find. But out National Forest, BLM, you can hike for 10 miles a day if you want to easily. And so there's a lot of opportunities for that. I also have little activity mats over here where I do a little bit of yoga, and I'm more into Pilates and Tai Chi. However, I've noticed it's more of a challenge than when you have like a gym membership or you have workout buddies that keep you accountable. It's like it's up to you to keep yourself accountable, and that's pretty challenging sometimes.
How do you deal with extreme weather?
Yeah, that's definitely an issue sometimes in certain parts of the country. I've taken to avoiding places that have more extreme weather, but when I traveled through Oklahoma and Kansas, there was definitely a lot of tornado warnings, and there was even one day where the tornadoes were supposed to hit in the middle of the night, and I went outside and I was looking at the sky, and it was pretty late, and another camper was like, "You're not going to sleep either, are you?" And I was like, "Nope," because it was supposed to be a whole mass of tornadoes that were likely, and it did actually end up hitting. One tornado hit near the campground at about 6 a.m. when I finally fell asleep and woke up to some noise of some big rig moving something, and I walked out of the door, and a fifth wheel that was trying to get to the campsite, I guess early in the morning, had flipped over. The tornado came and flipped the fifth wheel into a ditch, and the truck was still standing. Nobody was hurt, but obviously did some massive damage to that fifth wheel. So being alert, being aware, and not taking it lightly is how I deal with it.
Nice. Have you met other nomads, and what's that like? Like, have you had a chance to like join other people on the road?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my first couple of years I was just getting the hang of it, so I wasn't really into socializing, and I also didn't really know how things were going to be different with nomads. But getting acquainted with other nomads, just understanding that their life is going to be as adventurous and as unpredictable sometimes as your life. So that's been a little challenging. Like, for example, you may be hanging out and thinking your friend's going to be there for a month, and maybe they are, but they're going to go somewhere else for 2 weeks and come back. So it's been interesting, a little difficult to really get to know anyone because of that out of sight, out of mind thing, I guess. But it's been good. It's been interesting, and I think most of us out here have enough in common to be good acquaintances and maybe even find a few friends here and there.
Have you ever felt loneliness while being a nomad?
Occasionally. I don't think it's been as challenging as I thought it would be, because you're always heading somewhere else, making plans, so your mind's on a lot of different things. So not really. And some of the times that I started to feel lonely, I would run into amazing wildlife because there weren't any other people around, and the animals were around, and just feeling more comfortable, I guess. So that's been really amazing to see the wildlife. So when there's been a lack of friends, I made friends with the animals.
How long do you plan on being a nomad, and is it just a phase?
It's probably not a phase. I just like it too much. But I could see myself becoming slightly more static in the future. Sure, I see a lot of the people who have come to Quartzsite a lot. They just set up camp for almost 4 or 5 months, and then they'll go to maybe one other place or two other places for the summer, and so that's kind of attractive to me. But not having as many choices as to where you're living isn't attractive to me.
Okay. All right. What advice would you give someone who's thinking about being a nomad?
Do your research. Like, really watch. What I started with was watching a lot of different YouTube channels related to not only RVing or being a nomad, but also off-gridding. Like, did I want to do that? Did I want to do a tiny home? Something similar to just alternative living, I guess, more sustainable living. And then you'll kind of get an idea of what you're willing to deal with and what you might want to do. And then what I did after I got my first rig is I stayed in an RV park for a couple of months and moved around to campsites, and then I'd come back to that RV park. And that's a really good way to figure out if you want to live that type of lifestyle, and if it's going to work for you too, because it's not for everyone.
All right, last question. Where does the road take you next?
More adventure. I don't know. You don't always have to have a plan. And so I think that's one of my favorite things about living like this, is to have some idea of what your plans are going to be, but to just ask yourself, what's another part of this beautiful country I haven't seen that I want to see? And that's what usually leads me to my next trip.
Nice. Well, Rosie, it was been a pleasure chatting with you, and see you guys later.
Yeah, thank you.